Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on the 16th of August, Tuesday. We welcome you here at our Weber County Commission meeting. We will start this meeting today with a Pledge of Allegiance by Rick Grover and an invocation by Rick Grover. You going to do them both? Okay, well, there you go. And then I'll give the thought of the day. So, Rick?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recording in progress.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet this morning. We're thankful for the opportunity that we've had to hold the county fair this past week, and we're grateful for the success that our youth had in it and the youth had with the junior livestock. We're thankful for the valuable lessons that they learn from participating in the county fair and the importance of work. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to meet to discuss the Western Weber General Plan and other items on the agenda this day. We pray that the commissioners might be guided and directed in the decisions they make, and these things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rick. We appreciate that. You mentioned in your invocation what I was going to talk a little bit about, and that is the fact that the fair just ended. And for us three commissioners, that's a big week. We're there every day, and we do a lot, and we're there all day Saturday. And two things I wanted to mention. First of all, I was sitting by Mike Marriott, and the judging was going on the cows, and of course his grandchildren dominate that. And we'd gone through 4 classes of cows, and Marriott had won 3 of the 4, and on the 4th one they took second. And I says to him, I says, so Mike, how do you guys do that? I says, you got some little thing worked up? He says, we do have a little thing worked up. And I says, tell me about it. He says, well, those kids get up every morning at 6 a.m. in the summer. He says, they hate it. But he says, they get up, and he says, the first thing they do is go out and wash those cows down and comb them and groom them. And he says, those cows get used to them being around. He says, then they go out and start exercising those cows. They halter them and take them out, and he says that builds muscle on them. So he says you have to build muscle, and you have to get those cows used to working with you. And he says then they go back to the house for breakfast at 8, and he says that's every single morning all summer long. And he says that's how they do it. He says they just are committed to the program. So when, in your invocation, Rick, when you talk about teaching these kids good work ethics, that's truly what it does. It teaches these kids good work ethics. Well, the second thing I wanted to mention is I was trying to get out of there about 3:30, 3:45 Saturday night, and I was headed out. And, I really enjoy that pavilion where they sing. It's fun to sit and listen to them, and they're good hometown performers. And as I went by that, there was a group singing, and they were good enough that I stopped and kind of looked. And then as I looked, I noticed that I knew several of those in there. So I walked over to the little sign, and it was Hell Family, I guess, singers. Anyway, I've done business with them folks out at the nursery before, so I sat down there and watched, and I had a hard time finding a chair to sit because it was so full. So I suspect there was 55, 60 people there. Well, I was darn impressed. Much better than I thought a little local family performing group would have been. They had a kid on a little guitar, one of them little short, a mandolin is it called, that he could just go. Well, it was anyway, it was one of the Hell kids themselves. And so these are all Brent Hill's sons and grandsons, grandkids. He was the mayor of Pleasant View. Died early in life. Anyway, and they had a violinist that was an exceptional violinist. Good night could he play that violin. And you sit and listen to that, and I thought to myself, so that was 3:45. Well, at 5 o'clock when they finished, I was still sitting there. I was still sitting there. Time had just got away from me. But my point being, if you listen to these, there's enough stuff going on there that it's pretty darn impressive to just take it all in. If you don't just try to hustle in and hustle out. And for us, it's been really good to have that. And this year's fair was a tremendous success. And those are the couple of things that impressed me as I went through there on that last day. And you talk about life lessons for these kids raising these cows. That truly is what it's all about. It is a life lesson. Teaches them to work, and that quality, there's a benefit that comes to that. And that's how you win these. All right, that's my thought of the day, commissioners.
Wonderful thought.
I hope so. I think you guys think sometimes, man, here he goes again, pontificating.
No, we think that, but it's okay.
It's okay, that's all right. Well, very good. Well, let's go to our agenda. This is item E, which is the public comments portion of this. If there's people who have come to comment today on items that are on the agenda, right now would be your time to stand up and comment. We'd love to hear from you if you have something to say. We have some weighty issues on the agenda today that we're going to move on. And I see new people in the audience that haven't been here before, and we'd love to hear any of you that would care to speak out about these items. Going once?
Anybody online?
Is there anybody, Shelley, online? No? All right, well, we'll go ahead and go to the next. Oh, here we go. Thank you for getting up. So if you just state your name and where you live at the front of your comment, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, hello, Commissioners. My name is Peggy Doolingbaker. I'm at 2619 North Nordic Valley Drive. And I hope you don't think I'm up here pontificating again, but I do want to share a few thoughts before you look at the action item on here from Nordic Valley. And I couldn't help but think, but back in the 80s, the old guard was talking about in the valley, about we don't want to be another Park City. We want to be unique. And that still rings true today. So in my opinion, this iteration of the plan for the form-based village for Nordic Valley is not connected to the master plan as we thought. The residents thought it was going to be a small village, and that turned into the form-based village, which is well laid out, but very large for our area. And then after the last meeting, I think the planners called it a community. And a community is not a small village area. So I really feel misled by that. And I also speak for over 290 residents that signed the petition that agreed with that. It's just too big. So the Ogden Valley Planning Commission did give a positive recommendation for this, and that was with overwhelming opposition to the plan. So I just want you to consider that. Residents have great concerns that they've been working back and forth with the Planning Commission about density, about the height exceptions. about the traffic, the pollution, the noise, the sewer, the water, those things that are going to impact our everyday life up there in the valley. So in light of the water, with the state of emergency, why wouldn't we discuss making this footprint smaller? Do we need over 300 rental units in addition to the other dwellings? You know, the density keeps growing with bonus density and workforce density added on top of that. So we're just asking that you look at that footprint and make it smaller for our area. In the last water study, it was concluded that the county, I lost my spot there, sorry. If the county does not want to lead that water effort to secure more water, then we should really look at significantly limiting the development for now. So I guess what we're asking is really be thoughtful, look at the size of the footprint, and please help us not be another park city. And as I saw the sign recently, a little more park, a little less city. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that very much. Shelley says we have a comment online. We have two.
You got one that stood up.
Let's go ahead and go to the first one. Eric? Oh, I have Eric Householder on here.
The one that I have first is L. Irvin. He's been raising his hand for a while. L. Irvin, can you hear me?
Mr. Irvin, would you go ahead and speak up, please? Unmute yourself and speak.
Yes, Larry Irvin, Nordic Valley. As you all know, most of the folks of Nordic Valley are strongly opposed to the form-based village concept being applied there and the open space it consumes. And we've been voicing our opposition during this whole process. According to planning, Mr. Ewart and the developers, they feel they've addressed our concerns through tweaks to the form-based village code with Nordic Valley specific wording. But we do not feel these tweaks come close to addressing our issues. Yet this freight train keeps plodding on, and it feels like the decision makers are all on board. We hear in one form or another, just about every meeting relating to Nordic Valley, that a village there is what the public wanted. Mr. Ewart typically squeezes us in somewhere, sometimes as an answer to a question posed. This is what the public wanted, right? This references to the public input from surveys and workshops prior to the 2016 general plan. And this statement is a significant misrepresentation of the public input gathered during that process. These results are outlined in the general plan study, but the conclusions represent very subjective interpretations. There was a key scenario workshop that only had a couple dozen participants, and the difference in the public responses would be statistically insignificant in normal data analysis, especially with such a small data sample. Also, the villages as presented to the public back then, using Old and Newtown Eden as the examples, are dramatically different than what is before us now in Nordic Valley. No concept presented to the public back then involved transferring density from the valley floor to hillsides and on open space, such as proposed in Nordic Valley. In fact, the general plan study even states that Nordic Valley was added later to reach a build-out projection. And that projection was flawed in its assumptions and methods. And these flaws have been exposed by the subsequent 2020 census data. We've recently submitted documentation detailing these flaws. So any declaration that the project on the hillside Nordic Valley community being built primarily on open space represents what the public wanted back then is subjective, biased, and a self-serving misrepresentation. This public input is clearly deemed important for it to be brought up so often in meetings related to Nordic Valley. But if 2015 public input is being misrepresented as supportive of the village approach there, and 2022 public input is strongly opposed, this should be an important consideration. So we hope the next time this 7-year-old public input is referenced as supportive, that anyone who is truly being objective here will not just accept this statement as fact. the community there expected that eventually there would be some form of ski resort development that would occur on the resort properties with the current zoning without swallowing up the open space area there. And this application of the village concept here is dramatically different than what was ever presented to the public while developing the current general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Who was the other one on there?
The next one just says iPhone.
Okay. And what was his name?
There's not a name. iPhone. It just was
Whoever is on your iPhone, could you go ahead and unmute and speak? Introduce yourself. You've got to introduce yourself so we know who you are.
Hello?
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 I hear you.
Oh, is anybody else there?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
Did we all get cut off?
Yes,
Yeah, you can, I can hear you. You're good.
okay, thank you. My name is Felice Quigley, and I live along with my husband, David Bolin, in Nordic. And we are fairly newcomers to the community, having lived there for about a year and a half now.
Elise, I hate to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. I'm one of the attorneys with Weber County. I'm not actually at the meeting. I'm attending remotely like you are, but let's wait until the chair recognizes another speaker. They may have technical difficulties. So just to make sure you're getting heard, let's see if we can get connected with the main meeting first.
He is being heard, and we all wanted to hear him, so go
Everyone
ahead.
hear what I said?
Yes, we have. Everything's fine. Just keep talking.
I heard you, but I was on Zoom too.
Me too.
Keep going. Felice Quigley, keep going. Brandon, if you can hear him, tell him to keep going. Her.
It appears they can't hear us,
I know.
but we can hear them.
Rhonda, I see you on there. If you can hear us, tell this lady to keep going.
They can't hear us.
Well, it shows that we're muted on here at the bottom of our screen.
That's for sound.
You're not muted.
I just sent Quinn a text.
And I sent a message out.
All right, I've received some communication from the room that you can continue talking, and it looks like they'll try to get connected with us and they can hear you.
Okay. This is Felice Quigley. I live at the base of Nordic Valley Way and Viking Drive with my husband. We bought our house just about a year and a half ago, and my first meeting that I attended was a work session of the Planning Commission back last February. And when I first met Charlie, he explained to me that the overwhelming majority of the valley wanted Form Village-based zoning, and that it had just been passed in January, and it was consistent with the master plan. He also mentioned that he had been to training sessions with form-based village zoning, and that it was overwhelmingly popular in cities like Austin and Washington, D.C., and other places. And so I took what Charlie told me at face value. But since that time, I've attended numerous meetings, not only those sponsored by the developer, but also the Planning Commission meetings. I've met with the 3 county commissioners, along with Doug Weaver and Joanna, and I've spent many, many, many hours, weeks of time looking at the current code, looking at the proposed changes and tweaks in the form-based village zoning. I happen to echo what has been said both by Peggy before me and by the other gentleman. I'm sorry, I forget his name, and I'm zooming in on a phone because I'm traveling on the East Coast right now. But I think that this is just much too big, and I think that has been the consensus of everybody up at Nordic since the beginning. We have made numerous suggestions. I met with Scott individually. I also met with Scott and Charlie individually, suggested that not only the density be scaled back and gave very specific factual reasons for that because of over-calculations based upon errors in prior maps that should have been denoted as 01 that weren't. And some of those concessions were addressed, some. But what was not addressed, and that I still am, as well as everybody else that I have spoken to is concerned about, is the number of units, as well as the fact that hotels and condo hotels are not going to be factored in the actual calculations in determining transferable density rights. Also, what we're very concerned about is the heights of these buildings. We've requested time and time again that the developer, who has said that there were not going to be any buildings constructed over 35 feet except for the base of the existing ski area on the ski pond or the ski lake. They have not changed, at least that I haven't seen the changes, specifically addressing that in the zoning for that, in the form-based village zoning that is consistent with what the developer is saying. This is all being changed, and the proposal is being done because the developer has asked for it. They are the proponent of this form-based village zoning in Nordic. And if they are not going to build buildings that are 50 feet high, except for at the base of the ski area, then why not change the code to reflect that? There's absolutely no reason not to incorporate that. So I'm amazed because I've heard from both Rhonda as well as from at many meetings that were held that they have no intentions of building anything over 35 feet except at the immediate base of the existing ski area. So I don't know why that the code cannot be changed to reflect that when it seems like the community as well as the developer wants that. So I don't have really anything else to say other than I would appreciate your strong considerations of the community's outreach about this and be consistent with what not only the developer is saying, but what the community wants as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, did you have somebody else on there that would like to speak? Okay, yes, sir. Please come up. It's good to have you here today. Could you introduce yourself? Tell us where you live.
I'm Bruce Keswick. I live up in Nordic, and I have a new comment that was going to be sent in, I believe, prior to the meeting, possibly not. But it was to consider property tax protection as we move forward. As you know, the property taxes jumped dramatically recently, and this is a new item as this area grows, as property values jump to protect those that have been there for a long time or are retired up there. That's the base of the comment, and any specifics will be sent in written form.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Others? Okay. What is their name?
There's another iPhone. Let's go Beth Austin.
Beth Austin, if you're on, could you unmute and speak?
Hello, Beth Austin, Nordic Valley. I just wanted to push back on the claim yesterday that the changes to the latest iteration meets the concerns of the residents. They do not, and in fact, they are in some ways much, much worse. There was a lot of changes that weren't even discussed yesterday and premises that were just accepted without evidence. I'm concerned again about outdoor noises and odors. We don't have the municipal protections that we should, and there's a lot of permitted uses that are smelly and odorous and noisy. Also, the workforce housing changes are unlike anything I've seen before. Now, workforce housing means moderate income housing as defined by some Utah statutes, but it also shall mean for a household that earns less than 100% of the median gross income for households of the same size in the specific planning area. That is not any definition of affordable housing that I've ever seen. And again, it leaves that plus the fact that you can have all these restrictions lifted on building size and lot size is quite worrisome when it comes with free bonus density now, which was again something we were against. So there's so much more, but I only have this limited time. I just wanted you to know. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Beth. Rhonda, would you like to make a comment? Rhonda Kippen, we show you have your hand up. Would you unmute and speak?
Sorry, I had myself muted. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person today. I had a slight accident this morning, and so I'm waiting in the doctor's office. But I wanted to make a couple of comments here. First of all, to actually back Charlie, you were up a little bit because I actually did work at the county during the period of time that the general plan was being done, and I was part of the work sessions. And the reason Nordic was actually identified late in the game as a village center was because the citizens brought it forward saying, what about Nordic Valley? We have a ski resort there, and it's only reasonable to think that that will turn into eventually a village area. And it was the citizens that brought it forward, wanting it to be a village area, not the staff that brought that forward. And so that is why Nordic was added as a potential village area. What I want to clarify to everybody is that what is being adopted today is only a text amendment. It does not modify anything that is going on with your property. What will take place next, that you then have the ability to come and negotiate with the Planning Commission and the County Commission, is what we are actually proposing to rezone. And that is like the noise, the dust, the anything that could be disturbing to you. And you'll have that opportunity to do that on anybody in the Nordic Valley that wants to rezone their property to this zone. These are all legislative decisions, and you have the right to bring your concerns on an individual case to the commission and to the Planning Commission and protest each one of those as they come forward, and you're able to evaluate what each case is on an individual item, as you'll be able to see. So the reason why the restrictions have not been put on the certain buildings that we have conceded down to 35 feet is because that is what we're going to be putting into our development. And the reason we will be putting, other like restrictions on the density that we've put in is because it will go into the development agreement. And the other thing is, people are saying that we have taken away the open space. We had 50 acres of open space that we are initially dealing with. We now have 365 acres of open space. So
those are just the items I wanted to clarify, is that this has been pegged as a village area since 2016. We have gained from 50 acres of open space to 365 acres of open space, and you will have a chance on an individual basis to come and talk on to the Planning Commission when it is more understood what the rezone is going to entail, because this does not change anybody's property. This just is putting into code what somebody could actually have the ability to do if they chose to rezone their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. We appreciate it. All right, anybody in the room who would, because we're going to finish this. All right. Oh. Who is it?
Beth Austin.
Beth Austin, you spoke once. Do you have something else that you didn't present?
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Rhonda and say that while individually we have some control, if a permitted use is taken by our neighbors, they will have to approve it if it's a permitted use. And a lot of the permitted uses are of great detriment to the neighbors. And that's one of the reasons why you have zones in the first place. And a lot of the permitted uses have nothing to do with the resort layout that has been presented. So they shouldn't be there to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go and end public comment. And Charlie, can you step up here? I'm going to answer a bunch of these, and I want you standing there so when I say something wrong, you can correct me. Okay? We want to start out by the form-based village comment. This we listened to after the public hearing. We took about 75% of it out and took it just to the resort area because of your comments. And the developer was okay with that, and it didn't really affect him, and we were trying to maybe put a little too much into it here. I don't want to point to a wrong or a right here. We took it out because of your comment. All right, did I say that right?
Not quite, Commissioner. So
okay.
let me share my screen here.
Don't be too exact now, Charlie.
Mostly. How about that?
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen just so you could see what I'm looking at. So first off, are we on? Perfect. So first off, just to be clear, the form-based village zone applies to no properties today. If you adopt this today, this does not affect a single property. We do have an application in from the ski resort seeking to rezone to this property. There's a public hearing posted for next Tuesday with the Planning Commission on that. So the idea that a lot of properties are going to be induced into this zone isn't accurate. Most of the time, the vast majority of the time, properties aren't rezoned by the commissioners unless there is property owner consent in doing so. So setting that groundwork first and foremost. Secondly, the streets that are south of the village that you see on the map up in here, they were previously designated with different street types. So form-based street regulating is a little bit different than the Euclidean zoning where you draw a blob on a map and it's one color and only certain uses are allowed in there. And these street types allowed additional density. And the concern that we addressed by changing these street types back to green is that they don't allow additional density above and beyond what the base density is currently at build out in that area. In other words, 1 acre lots. And so even though we've created a plan, an area plan, small area plan, like the general plan suggests that we do, that can be applied to the area. Number one, none of the properties are pushed into it. Number two, when a property owner desires to rezone to it, if they are up in this area, Viking or the southern part of Nordic Valley Way, they would be in the 1 acre lot size, which is exactly what those subdivisions have been developed out as. Sorry, a little more complicated than it's not part of it, but if you look at the actual commercial areas and the multifamily areas, they don't go down into that neighborhood. Actually, they end at the roundabout.
Okay. Second was building height. I thought we had changed that with buildings other than those right down around the resort.
So right here at the roundabout, the applicant has suggested there's going to be a building that could potentially block the view of some of the uphill residents, the view across the valley. Now, the applicant's designer has suggested to us there's a significant drop between what's uphill and what's down here. So even a 50-foot tall building might not actually be side obscuring. We don't know. We don't have evidence one way or the other. But the applicant has said that he is willing to, through his rezone and development agreement, self-restrict that to 35 feet,
right.
No higher than that.
So to the person who said this needs to be in code, it's the development agreement that we will put with this that guarantees this, right?
That's right. And one of the reasons that's important is because you've got some of these other streets that do have the potential of 50-foot tall buildings, and the applicant is banking on that idea.
Okay, when it comes to workforce housing that was talked about, number one, state law demands some of this. Number two, we're trying to lessen the traffic up and down the canyon. And so this is good planning. Would you like to speak to that?
I would. And as I do so, I want to say that I really appreciate Beth's astute nature. She dives right into the details, and she seems to be really quick to learn and understand. So if we can switch back over to the screen here. If you look at the new definition of workforce housing, we do use the definition that the state code uses for moderate income housing, but we expand it a little bit. And we expand it for public service employees. Living in the valley is expensive, and if a teacher, for example, who works over at the junior high or the elementary school earns more than the moderate income threshold of the entire county, they wouldn't be able to qualify for this. But if you look at the home values and the real estate sales prices, they might not even be able to qualify for a mortgage up in that area earning $50,000 or $60,000 a year. And so what this does is it allows a teacher earning up to the area, 100% of the area median income, which is in the $90,000 a year threshold. It allows a household that has a public service employee to actually purchase a property or rent a property in the valley and stay in the valley. If we have a sheriff deputy who primarily works and is based in the valley, they could potentially purchase one of these housing units, or any other public service employee that is primarily based in the valley. For example, my office space is primarily based here, so I wouldn't qualify for that. We're just trying to carve that out a little bit for them.
The other thing that was mentioned is the operating odors and things that happen around a business. Well, the responsibility of the county is to monitor that kind of stuff and make sure that it doesn't get, it's the health department and it's our inspectors, and we do that on a regular basis down here, and we will do it on a regular basis up there. It's our responsibility to do that. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, precisely, Commissioners. So one thing that Beth commented on in our last meeting, which I thought was very observant, is there's a lot of uses listed in this chapter as potentially being allowed in the form-based area. If you look through these tables, you can see where some are permitted and some are not permitted. P means permitted, N means not permitted, C means permitted by a conditional use permit. The reason why you see the table like this, Beth speculated that maybe the planners were, just a little rushed and threw a bunch of stuff together in order to just get something done, and that's not accurate. We actually spent quite a few hours, dozens if not more than that hours, working through this land use table and looking at every single individual use and deciding whether or not in a form-based area along a commercial street, should this use be allowed or not allowed? In a form-based area along a residential street, should this use be allowed or not allowed? And Commissioners, one of the reasons why this is important is because this land use table does exactly what Beth said. It takes every land use that is listed in the land use code and puts it in one table. This is important because we would like to apply the land use table to all zones. That way we see one spot with all zones and all permissions or prohibitions in one location. You can eliminate quite a few sections of code, quite a few pages of code and quite a few conflicts in your code if you have one consolidated land use table like most communities have in their land use code. So directly addressing the impacts, that is why we looked at the permitted, the conditional, and the not permitted. If it's conditional, we saw there was additional impacts. One of the things you'll find in here is there's a paragraph that says, if the use inside the building for some reason goes outside the building, noise, vibration, smells, activities, then it's not allowed. The use has to stay inside the building unless it is specifically listed as being allowed outside. So let's say, for example, you've got, it's just extreme example, I can't see this happening in the Nordic Village, but let's say you have a nightclub. You got that really deep bass. The owners of that nightclub, according to the text, will have to insulate that building, sound dampen that building, so that the folks who live in the residential units upstairs can't hear it. Now that's a strong standard to meet, and they're not going to be able to operate if they can't meet that standard. So we do anticipate the effects of what's going on inside of these buildings.
Thank you. All right, those are the things I had written down. Is there anything else you wanted to cover, Charlie?
I've apparently made a lot of comments that I don't remember making, according to some of the public comments being given. I just wanted to make sure.
You do that all the time.
Yeah. And maybe my skin's not as thick as it should be in the job position that I have, but I wanted to make sure I make a clarification, maybe even offer an apology. If I ever said that these changes or what's being proposed is generally accepted by the overwhelming majority of the Ogden Valley, maybe I misspoke. What I'm showing you and what is in the general plan and the alignment of this with what has been adopted in the general plan is overwhelmingly accepted by the public who were involved in the general plan, in the writing of the general plan. A lot of the stuff you see in here, including the inclusion of Nordic as a village, were directly proposed by folks of the GEM committee when we were writing the general plan. In fact, the leader of the GEM committee was the one who proposed this village, as well as the one at the intersection of Old Snow Basin Road and Highway 39, the one that we had some concerns about in a rezone last year. So as from a planning perspective, we were focused on Eden, East Huntsville, and maybe Liberty. We thought we'd have a little bit of pushback on Liberty, and these other areas were induced or brought in by members of the public who actually involved themselves in the general plan process. I take a little bit of exception when folks say that they don't like the plan when they weren't involved in working with you guys, working with the planners, working with the Planning Commission on creating the plan.
So listen, we appreciate that comment, and so everybody understands this process has been going on for years. It started years ago with the general plan, and then it's evolved as things go along and people adjust and move. And today we are doing another one of those very things too, moving this along. And so it's a process that we've been working with for a long time. Is there any members of the Upper Valley Planning Commission who are here? Okay, I don't see any. I just wondered if any of those wanted to make a comment. Commissioners, would either of you two care to make a comment now?
No, I'm good, thanks. Mr. Chair, I'd like to hold my comments until it's listed on the agenda item G. Thank you.
All right. Very good, Charlie. Thank you very much. And we do appreciate all you folks coming and speaking up and voicing your opinions today and giving public comment. All right. We'll go to item F on our agenda, which is approval of the warrants as listed today for $1,551,033. Request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $58,565. Ricky, would you like to give us a summary of those warrants and purchase orders?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We issued 8 purchase orders this week for $59,000. Just over half that amount, or $30,000, was for our IT department, which went primarily to, or will go towards a software renewal. 24%, or $14,000, was for the library, which will include painting at the Southwest Branch, programming materials, and maintenance equipment. 7%, I entered those on the wrong thing. I'll get to those in just a second. As far as warrants, we issued 208 checks this week for $1.6 million. 1/3 of that amount, $507,000, is for the transfer station, which is almost exclusively disposal fees. 18%, or $276,000, is escrow release for the Basin, for Cherokee Farms, and for Winston Park. 7% or $110,000 is transportation funds reimbursements to Pleasant View City for the work done on Rulon White Boulevard, and then 5% or $84,000 is for the library that was used to purchase books and materials as well as to pay for utilities.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, item 5. Approval for an agreement by and between Weber County Library Board and the North Ogden City regarding parking at the library. And item 5 is a request to approve revisions to the County 9.1 travel policy. Commissioners, questions?
None for me. I think we've been through this.
We have.
No questions, and we've gone through especially the revisions to the travel policy, and I've personally taken a look at that agreement between the library board and the North Ogden City, and it just is another thing that we do to help some of our cities there, just while they're doing some construction there. So with that, when you're ready for a motion, I'll make a motion that we improve our consent items, which is listed on our agenda as F like Foxtrot, items 1 through and including 5.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Very good. On our action items today, item G1 is request for approval of a resolution. Weber County Commissioners appointing members to the Weber County Board of Adjustments. Rick Grover.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We have 3 positions open for the Board of Adjustments, 2 full-time positions and 1 alternate position. Rex Mumford and Bryce Frower currently serve on the Board of Adjustment for the full-time position. They are reapplying, and then we also have Joseph Postenbaugh, who is applying to serve on the Board of Adjustment. These are 5-year terms.
Very good, Commissioners. We have those in front of us, and we have them, their resumes. I didn't see anything here that kicked any of them out for me. Did either of you?
No. Did we have any additional applications?
We had 1, but they were located in South Ogden,
Okay.
which is not in unincorporated Weber County.
So not qualified then?
Right.
Didn't qualify. No, I'm fine. Be happy to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd be ready.
So I would move to approve Resolution 38-2022, appointing the members to the Weber County Board of Adjustments as presented by Mr. Rick Grover this morning.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's a resolution.
Oh, it's a resolution.
Sorry, you caught me.
Well, he's been gone so long that you don't think to go to him anymore.
Okay, roll call vote for Resolution 38-2022. Commissioner Frohr.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Chair Jenkins.
Aye. Thank you. All right, item 2 on our agenda is a discussion and action on proposed text amendments to the Weber County Land Use Code to amend the form-based village zoning ordinance along with other sections of the Weber County Land Use Code to add provisions and exhibits intent to create a Nordic Valley area street regulating plan. Charlie?
I'm back again. Commissioners, all 3 items that you have on the agenda from me, you've held public hearings on. I've got as much of a presentation or as little of a presentation as you would like me to have on this. You've seen everything that's proposed, including what's in your packet. And we discussed a little bit, as mentioned earlier, yesterday in our meeting, some of the changes that are being suggested. I'm glad the comment about workforce housing, the definition of that came up. That is something I failed to identify with you guys in your work session yesterday. And so it's important to talk.
Charlie, we've been over this so many times, I could almost do it without you.
Good. Close your eyes and take off.
Commissioners, would you like any more information from Charlie?
No more information, but a comment when it's appropriate.
It's appropriate right now, Commissioner Harvey.
I appreciate the comments made, Mr. Chair, by those in person today. Miss Doolan Baker. Did I say that right? Doolan Baker?
Doolin Baker, yes.
Doolan Baker. I spelt that in a lot of different ways, and I took my umlauts off, and I did my best there. Thank you. Mr. Irvin, Miss Quigley, Mr. Keswick, and Miss Austin, and also you, Miss Kippen. Thank you. I also wanted to comment, we've received quite a few emails from people. Many of them were written one time, and then there were some small changes, but pretty much they're the same body of the email. Charlie, you've received some and have responded to them for us or to the people, and your responses were good and accurate. I appreciate that. But I wanted to make sure that I forwarded those emails on so that I wanted those people to know that they've been heard, and it's a matter of public record on that as well. You know, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, I love the Ogden Valley ever since I started going up there in the 60s and 70s, believe it or not, and I love the conservation easements that some of which we've participated in even financially. I love that open ground. I think there was a couple of comments made today about this is what the public wanted. I may have been I may have understood differently, or I may have been misinformed, or I may have paid attention to the wrong voice years and years ago when Mr. Wheatley, who was over the GEM committee, and I mean no degradation to him, but he represented what he said was a wide variety of people who cared a lot about the Ogden Valley years and years ago when he was here, and he no longer lives here. But I think it's loud and clear to me that ideally they want the same thing that I want in my neighborhood, and that's not a lot more growth, or very responsible growth. Some things, when you sit here, some things you learn you can do and you can't do. Some you have to do whether you like it or not, because out of state statute. Most people, I think those who have really put in there, done a lot of homework, realize that we're not the water authority. Water seems to be a big topic amongst many platforms right now, but we're not the water authority in the valley. Whether it's this developer or any developer, they need to bring the water with them. If they don't have contracted water from whatever source they get it from, their development would never come through. I do remember sitting in another position in the county years ago where people wanted to reduce the urban sprawl on the valley floor, and this is why we have conservation easements. If they couldn't have no more growth, they'd rather have them in village areas or nodes or whatever you want to call them. And so I realize that the action today is text, and I realize it's a text amendment, and I realize that there are development agreements that would have to come. About 6-8 weeks ago, I met with a number of citizens who live on Nordic Valley Drive. It was very enlightening, and they had asked, and maybe it was more than that, maybe it was 8 or 10 weeks ago, but they had asked that we'd get with, if things were to move forward, that we work with the developer about reducing the number of allowed potential residences that could go in that area. At the time, we were talking 700 or 800, 900, something like that. This has been reduced now to about 500. They talked about heights, and what I've seen, that's all been handled and will be handled as it relates to development agreements. I like what you've talked about. The smell and the noise piece is is a consideration. But I think the comment about making the footprint smaller has been done based on my understanding, what I got out of the meeting. Most of the things that the people from Nordic Valley Drive, they seem to have been satisfied. Then also, I think it's important that people who, I don't, more and more people they live up there are full-timers, not part-timers. Those who come in as part-timers, I want to represent the full-timers with a little more vigor or passion than I do the part-timers. Not that the part-timers aren't important, but we don't usually educate their children, or the amount of incidences aren't as great because of just the timing. So I have to think about that. It was also important to me through this whole process, and as I've met individually also with some of the landowners, especially on Nordic Valley Drive, that this form base doesn't apply to them. That's been satisfied. Because at one time, the notion was that they could subdivide their lot with ADUs or other types of things. This wouldn't apply now to that. Is that correct, Charlie?
That's correct. They could already do ADUs. That's a different part of the law. But yeah, they wouldn't be able to subdivide and put more residences on there.
Correct. And because if I owned a lot up there, I wouldn't want my neighbor to do something that I wouldn't want to have happen. I mean, I get that. So basically, Charlie, as I understand it, and please confirm or deny this for me, but this action basically facilitates and formalizes the process that supports what's been done through years and years of planning, and it also supports this is legal, what we're doing. Not just because we can doesn't mean we have to, but it also, was the Planning Commission unanimous on this? Do you?
No, there was one dissenting opinion. And I think the primary, I can't speak for her specifically, but I think the primary reason she was dissenting was because of the road designations that were there, that are no longer there, that have been changed. And
yeah, I remember, and that had to do with slope and percentage of grades and things like that. So everything, just the depth that we've spent on this, I'm satisfied that most of those have been met. So I don't want this to sound rambling, but I do want people to know that for me, I've done my very best to get into the details and listen to those comments that have been given, and I appreciate being educated by that. Thank you. That's all that I have, Mr. Chair, on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Faure, do you have anything?
Just a couple comments. So I think, and I appreciate Commissioner Harvey bringing that up, and Mr. Ewert, that the plan for Ogden Valley was redone in 2016, 17?
16.
And I think it's important to note that at that point in time, the Gym Committee actually directed what you see in plan today. And even though I wasn't directly involved with the Gym Committee, I wasn't obviously in the commission at that point in time, they had a number of public meetings at that point in time, I think starting in 2015, if not before. So even though some of the people in the valley may not agree with that now, that was the plan that was put in place. The Planning Commission and this commission obviously have a duty to live up to that plan. That plan was put forth by a group of citizens at that point in time in an effort to maintain some type of open space on the valley floor and move that to areas that could be served by infrastructure, and noting that the resort areas become very important for future growth. It's important to note that we talk about open space. The lack of open space, well, currently, as was pointed out, there's approximately 50 acres of open space that now turns into over 350 acres of open space. So to me, that's a win. That was what the Gym Committee actually was proposing in the plan, was to create open space, take density off the valley floor. And again, as this goes forward, this is just the starting point. There's no decisions made until the rezone application comes forth at some point in time. But with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to declare that I'm going to recuse myself from a vote. I'm involved with a family trust that has a very minor share in an adjoining land to this, and just so to avoid any accusations of conflict, I'm going to recuse myself. Again, people have the public record. They know that's a trust that I've been involved with for probably over close to 20 years on an adjoining piece of property. So I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Harvey, you had another?
Just one more thing. One of the comments in the notes, it said that for the county to invest. As we look at ARPA funds, which the county received, it was suggested that we lead with some type of water development, and I stated that we don't develop water, that any developer, whether it's a single lot or a village, would have to come in with those water rights there. But we are putting what I would say I know it's a disproportionate amount of funds. Of course, Ogden Valley gets a disproportionate amount of visitors because it's just so awesome up there. But a disproportionate amount of ARPA funds is planned to be invested up there for sewer based on the number of residents up there, because that translates into reducing the number of nitrates that go into the water source or Pineview, which everybody uses that water, whether they use it directly or indirectly there. So we are planning on making a sizable investment to help the Ogden Valley in what we can do there. And again, there are some legal ramifications and things that we have to be able to survive an audit on that, but I'm in support of that. Currently, I'm in support of that, even though it's disproportionate and doesn't reflect equally all the citizens of Weber County. But I think it's the right thing to do. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, with that in mind, I'm ready to call the vote.
Well,
so this is ordinance 2022-20.
With Commissioner Frohr's declaration that he's going to recuse himself, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2022-20 to amend the form-based village zoning ordinance.
And I'll second that. So with that, this is a roll call vote.
Roll call vote for ordinance 2022-20. Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Chair Jenkins?
Aye. So that passes. All right, next up is action on the proposed text amendment to the Weber County Land Use Code to allow development to occur on a substandard street under certain circumstances to modify the threshold of a small subdivision. Charlie?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit of detail in this proposal, but Commissioners, you'll recall in 2020 we started talking a lot about development along substandard streets, a few different developments in different areas of the county proposing at the end of streets, and to the tune of dozens if not hundreds of lots. Which gave a large concern about egress, especially egress if the street is substandard and you've got two-way traffic, firefighters trying to get in with landowners and homeowners trying to get out. And so we wanted to address that. What the code previously said was no development can occur at the end of a substandard street. And that little paragraph in the code, it was kind of buried in a back corner of the code. I don't think a lot of people really understood it or was aware that it existed because there have been other developments that have been proposed and completed at the end of substandard streets. But as soon as we became aware that that law existed, we started applying it to development. And that's when it came to you guys as a concern and a possible need to address. And so in addressing it, what we are proposing here and what we've worked out with you guys, if you're still comfortable with it, is that development can occur on a substandard street. However, there needs to be a financial contribution from the developers on a lot-by-lot basis, on a per-lot basis, I should say, towards the improvement of that street. If it's a big subdivision, that might be the complete redesign of that street, if it actually pays for it, if their financial obligation pays for it. If it's a 1, 2, or 3 lot mom or pop subdivision, there's a calculation proposed here, a formula proposed here, that would go into how much they would have to give to the county in escrow. And that escrow account would be held specifically for that street. Now, this all started after a discussion about substandard dead-end streets, but we've expanded it after discussing with you guys to just substandard streets across the board, whether it is a dead end or not. So that escrow idea would go into play on any street that we've identified as being substandard. Substandard is a little bit of a generic term. Our current standard, cross-section and right-of-way width is fairly big for a 2-lane road. I mean, we're talking about 36 feet of asphalt in many cases. That isn't necessarily what we're establishing as what is standard. What is standard is at least 2 12-foot wide travel lanes. When we're talking about bringing a substandard street out of the substandard nature, as we move forward in the future, we'll need to look at each of these streets and make sure we add some shoulders and whatnot. But that may not necessarily come on the backs of those who are adding more lots to it. It just needs to be safe for two-way travel. The other thing that we addressed is, what about dead-end roads? And dead-end roads that are not just substandard, dead-end roads that are standard, how many homes can be placed on the end of a dead-end road? Now, internally, we've got a couple of different opinions on what our current code says. I'm of the persuasion that our current code says no more than 14 lots on the end of a dead-end road or cul-de-sac. But others in the past have looked at that and interpreted it to mean that that only applies if it is actually terminating in a cul-de-sac. What we're doing is we're taking away the confusing language. We're making it very clear. What we're saying is we add one more home to that equation, no more than 15 homes at the end, or excuse me, 15 lots at the end of a dead-end road or along a dead-end road. 15 lots, if all of them have accessory dwelling units, that's a total of 30, which is the maximum amount the fire code would allow on a dead-end road. Now, we extend that allowance to go further as long as that distance is along a street route that is part of a planning document, a general plan, a master street plan, a negotiated development agreement. If a landowner comes in and says, I'm at the end of a dead-end road, I've got 3 or 4 other landowners between me and the rest of the street system to complete that loop, I'm going to go work with those landowners. We're going to get a development agreement put together to show where that road's going to go as it cuts through their land in the future. They could come in and put a few more homes on there. If they have more than 30, they need an emergency egress. Regardless of what direction that goes, it can't go in the same direction that they came in, but they could go in the direction of whatever that development agreement, master plan, or whatever says. And then as those future landowners along that planned street come in, they'll continue to extend that road in the direction, eventually completing these dead-end loops, or completing these dead-end streets into actual loop streets and making it part of the street system.
What bothered me here, Charlie, was the fact that you'd have 15 people build on that road with no financial commitment to the road and get the benefit of it. On number 16, he had to pay for the whole thing.
Yep.
And that just wasn't fair, especially when 15 have had the benefit of that road for years.
That's right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, we don't make it retroactive. People who currently exist out there, if they got the benefit of that in the past, it is what it is. But people coming in would need to run that calculation and put a little bit of skin in the game on fixing that roadway. Otherwise, they won't be able to add more density on that road. Any questions for me on this?
Questions, Commissioners?
Comment if I could,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Charlie, I appreciate you bringing this forward. It seems like we've been discussing this for at least a couple of years. To me, this makes good sense. My first question is, I'm assuming this would apply to private roads. We have some that are private roads as well as public roads.
Currently, our code says that private roads have to meet the same standard as public roads, which this would apply, yes.
Okay. So, and this makes a lot of sense. And the other reason is that I think since the original ordinance was put into place, we've seen some changes in our community that most homes don't just have one car. Like when I grew up, one car was pretty much the maximum that most families in the valley had. Now you can see 2 or 3 cars in any household. So if you times that by 15 or 14, whatever the case may be, that's a number of cars on a substandard road that leads to safety issue. And again, I agree with Commissioner Jenkins. This clarifies it so that that last person that may build then does not get stuck with the entire, which makes it almost impossible to do. So I think this is a step in the right direction as we look at more and more construction on whether it be a public road or private road, what we call a substandard, brings them up to speed. Safety, fire, public safety, I think become very critical in this case.
That's right.
So I support this, Mr. Chair.
I may not have mentioned this to you guys in the past, but on the subject of multiple cars at one home, all of our research on Western Weber and in Western Weber General Plan shows that the average age is increasing, but the household size is also increasing. What that's telling us is that you've got adult children, intergenerational households, and so you're definitely going to get more cars at these households in those cases.
Out west, more tractors.
That's right. That's right.
That's true.
It used to be up in the valley, more tractors. Very good. Commissioner Harvey, anything? All right, I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve ordinance 2022 is that 21?
Mm-hmm.
21.
Second. Second by Commissioner Harvey. Craig, go ahead.
Okay, roll call vote for ordinance 2022-21. Commissioner Frohr?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Chair Jenkins?
Aye. Okay, item 4 is discussion and action on the proposed Western Weber General Plan. My good night. These plans we've been working on for years. We talk about years. If you talk about the general plan that was in 2016, now all the advancements to in the Upper Valley, and now you get down to the West Weber General Plan, and this was a plan that several of us wanted to, people wanted us to jump into when they were having the vote whether to create a city or not.
Yeah.
But we felt like we shouldn't. For one, it was expending funds that I thought was unfair to all the people. And number two, we didn't know if it was going to be a city or not. So why put all the time and effort into it? Well, as it turned out, I'm very glad we didn't because of the way this whole thing turned out and what happened. And it just ended up being really a tough proposal. But Andrew, you and the Planning Commission, we tip our hats to you, sir. You have done a marvelous job out there. Rick and Charlie, you've done a good job at our public hearing. There were lots of accolades for you guys and the time and efforts you put into this. And so I want to accompany those and agree with them. You've done a wonderful job, Charlie and Rick, and we appreciate it. So, Rick,
thank you, Commissioners.
We'll turn the time over to you on the proposed general plan for Western Weber County.
Great. I don't have a whole lot more to add other than what I presented last week. I mean, reading the plan has the meat and potatoes. The maps tell you a little bit. The plan tells you how the map applies. What you have in front of you is just updated maps. The future land use map is no different than what you've seen before, but what I've done is on each of the successive maps, I just give you a different viewpoint of how that map affects both streets, parks and recreation, active transportation, and future land uses. So what you're seeing there is not significantly different other than just the presentation. The only slight difference I would guide your eye to, and I just caught this as a mistake, if you're looking at, well, kind of hard to see on this map, but if you're looking at 700 North, and you take your eye towards where 700 North kind of curves down into 8300, 700 North on the previous map just straight teed into that 8300 future highway.
Yeah.
We're showing an angle down, and that's to keep if we ever do get a limited access freeway way out west, that's to make sure that those interchanges stay a mile apart.
Good.
And so I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that was there. As far as the plan document, I've got that sitting in front of you guys for you to pass around and look at. That's the formatted version. If you flip through it, you'll see that there are a few blank spaces for maps and for tables. The formal maps that you have in front of you, and a couple other maps that you've seen before, will be added in there. This is a resolution, if you choose to adopt it today. In the resolution, I've got a little bit of verbiage that, if you guys are comfortable with it, give staff a little bit of deference to go through the plan and correct any edits or grammar if we find more grammatical challenges, and then add the maps in and finish the maps up. Other than that, I think we're good to go. We'll get you, if you're good with it and adopt it, we'll get you the final document published by the end of the month at the latest.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to follow up on your comments. Again, this has been a heavy lift, and we wouldn't be here today without the fine work of the Planning Commission. Andrew and that group have put countless hours into this process that I think the public would, after our last public hearing, would agree is in the right direction. Changing plans is never easy, but we understood, even 2 or 3 years ago when this was first discussed, that it was our duty to look at the growth in this county and come up with a plan that served the future for our kids and grandkids. I believe that this plan gives us that opportunity, gives our kids and grandkids the ability to have an opportunity to live and work in Weber County in the future, which to me is critical. And Charlie, just so we're clear, so I'm clear, even though you've got different colors on here, the maps, this doesn't automatically change any zone.
Correct.
That it would give the opportunity for a landowner, if they desire, to change what they're currently doing, whether that's been a farm, orchard, whatever that may be, that they would actually have to come in and apply for a rezone, and at that point in time show proof of sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure, irrigation, et cetera. So,
yeah, and proof of benefit,
and then,
community benefit.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that this is the right direction. I just want to make sure that the public understands that this is not increasing any additional density right now, but gives the opportunity for those landowners to come in the future and request a change. That's my remark.
Great.
You know, it was amazing to me when we had the public hearing that the amount of people that really were more supportive than were against it. While there was some little opposition, but it was little, and this just goes to show just the amount of investment and time and care and attention to detail that our Planning Commission and our Planning Department have put into this process. One of the plans is 19 years old, and the other was over 50 years old. And so this is a landmark thing we're doing today to help tomorrow. So I'm really encouraged by that. Thank you. I think too, for both of you, for your efforts and what you've done to make sure this happens. And this just didn't get pushed off again to another group of commissioners, but we've addressed it, and that's wonderful, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. I appreciate that very much.
So if you're ready, Mr. Chair.
I am ready.
I'd make a motion that Resolution 39-2022, the Western Weber Planning Area General Plan, be approved.
And I'll second that.
Whoa, it's a big moment. We've been working a lot of years on this. I will call that. All in favor? Oh, this is a resolution.
Resolution.
Yep. Roll call vote for Resolution 39-2022. Commissioner Frohr.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Chair Jenkins.
Aye. Passes.
Mr. Chairman, I thought about interrupting you as the motion was being made. You mentioned this is This is a long process, and I committed to not shaving my beard until this is done. And I thought, do I want my beard to go? But I guess it's time.
Well, you committed to it. So
Think about it twice.
you just committed to it publicly.
This is my protest beard until the plan gets done. The beard's growing, and now it's done. So
Looking for that missionary haircut beginning tomorrow.
you'll see my cheeks tomorrow.
So that's been going ever since, huh?
Well, it started in October. Yep.
Wow, Charlie.
A little
So
bit of
that's
trim here
about
and
a
there.
year, huh? Growth?
Yeah, almost a year.
That's quite a beard for a year.
That's quite a year, yeah.
I get a lot of compliments. My girlfriend sure likes it, but I'm done. I'm tired of waking up with hair in my mouth. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank
This is a
you,
heavy
Charlie. We appreciate you. Rick? Very good. Well, with that, we'll go to item number 5 on the agenda, which is request for approval of memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and Ogden City for the purpose of distributing JAG grant funds. Chief Perry.
Good morning. Almost afternoon, I think, Commissioners.
Almost.
We have been, for several years, we have been recipients of a federal JAG grant with Ogden. This is the second year that I've been involved in it. I know Chief Roundy before me was involved in it. This MOU is required between us and Ogden every year in order to receive and distribute those funds. Ogden primarily takes the lead on this grant and does the majority of the work. I appreciate the work they do. Our portion of the funds go toward the Virtua simulator that we use for law enforcement training to maintain that. Both us and Ogden jointly maintain that. So a portion goes to that, and then we use the rest of our portion for equipment and other training opportunities. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner?
I have a question.
Commissioner Harvey?
Was there in the last week, were there any contests in softball between the sheriffs, or maybe, and the fire?
Yeah, I think there was.
I just was wondering, the people representing the fire left early. I believe there were tears in their eyes. I don't know why. Maybe could you tell me what the result of that contest was?
Yeah, it was closer than last year. I was told, I didn't play in it, but I was told that we let them get a little bit closer. I think it was we won by 5. I don't remember the final score, but we won by 5.
5-0?
No, it was 11-6.
Okay.
I think was the score.
Who's keeping score?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's keeping score?
We keep score.
I watched them. I wanted to zing them while they were here, doggone it.
Well, Commissioner Floor, this is your portfolio.
I'd be happy to make a motion with a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would move to approve the memorandum of understanding between Weber County and Ogden City for the purpose of distributing that JAG grant funds. And I would just say, I think we were updated by the sheriff yesterday on this. For those that haven't experienced the opportunity to use that simulator out at the gun range, which these funds will go for, I would encourage you to do so. First off, it gives you an appreciation for what our public safety people go through each and every day. And you understand that the decisions they make are very difficult. And in a time frame, split-second time frame, you have to make a decision on what to do. I'm just glad I'm not in their position to have to make those decisions. But the training becomes, in my opinion, and I just did it for half hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, the training, in my opinion, would give them real-world experience before they go out and actually encounter that. So I fully support that.
Great. That's a motion.
Second.
A second. Commissioner Harvey, anything you want to say before I call it?
No.
Very good. I'll call that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. It passes. Thanks,
Thank
Chief
you.
Barry. Commissioner comments. You know, but Tim Vanderneck sitting right there. The minute we finish, he's going to come up here and want to interview both of you.
He's an Ask You chair.
You know, I was actually, when you said Tim Vanderneck, I was thinking, of all the years I've been working, that Tim's about the best I've ever seen. I sure appreciate you, Tim. You really are. You're fair, and, you know, not always perfect in my eyes, but that's my eyes. But I think you're very fair and good, and I have no reservations in ever speaking with you because you represent at least what I say fairly. You don't just take the bits and pieces. You're doing really good. Thank you, Tim.
That's a good comment. I'd like to follow up on that. Commissioner Ford and I have dealt with, I don't know about hundreds, but certainly 30 or 40 different reporters down there in Salt Lake when we was at the legislature. And that was always our complaint, is they just weren't fair. And Tim's been very fair with us. He quotes us what we say, and right or wrong, at least it's fair. It. And that's all we expect. Anyway, Tim, good having you.
Absolutely. I just say, I think this is a great day for Weber County. We accomplished two things today that have been on our agenda for a number of years. And again, as Commissioner Harvey said, the easy thing to do as a county commissioner is just to kick the can down the road because of public comment. Obviously, we know that not everybody's happy with everything we do, but we have to make decisions on what we feel, and people elect us to make decisions on what we feel is the best interest of the citizens, current citizens and future citizens of this county. And I believe we've been able to accomplish that today.
Thomas, if I could?
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson said that more politicians are criticized for doing something than those that sit back and do nothing at all. So it's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We did the right thing today, I can tell you that.
Well, and the amount of effort that's gone into it, when I look at Andrew and, he's been on that plan. Well, I'll tell you, Wayne Andreotti, he was talking about getting off.
Wayne Yum.
Yeah, and when we told him we were going to tackle this, he hung in there to tackle this specifically. So some of our planning commissioners have done a yeoman's job here. I just am way impressed.
I don't know who Yeoman is, but maybe he was a good worker.
Yeoman was this little short guy.
Little short guy.
All right. Anybody want to go home? Or our next meetings, I should say, never go home.
So I don't think we're going home yet, but I'd make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
This is the